Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome here to the launch pad and our live launch coverage of SpaceX Starship Flight 5. If it's your first time here, though, welcome. My name's Zach. I'm the founder and host here at the launch pad. And here at TLP, it's our mission to inform and inspire the explorers of tomorrow because we believe that space is better together. You're looking at a live view from Starbase, Texas, and in the top left corner, a live look at the NASA WB-57, which is currently inbound to Starbase, Texas, in order to help support today's mission. Over the next 90 minutes, I'm going to be taking you through all of the steps of today's countdown as we get ever closer to that ignition point and that excitement being guaranteed at liftoff. The big question today, do we see the first ever Super Heavy booster catch attempt? As always, as we get started, we want to hear from you guys. Where are you watching from? Take a moment, let us know in the chat. While you're doing so, take a moment, engage that like button, share out the stream, invite people to join us. We believe that space is better together, so make sure you're inviting those people to join us, and we all sit and hear and watch today's historic flight. We'll dive into more about the Super Heavy booster catch attempt over the next 90 minutes and everything we know about today's Starship flight. We'll be, of course, live through the entire flight, patching in SpaceX once they go live. But this live view is coming from our very own TLP 24/7 camera down at Starbase. So if you ever want to take a peek down at Starbase, definitely check out this camera. And we also have the ability for certain members to be able to control our camera. So that system is currently offline for a launch day, but on non-launch days, you can use it to take a look around Starbase and the day-to-day operations. We'll get all the YouTuber stuff out of the way. As I said, like, share, invite people to join us. Also, make sure you head on over to the Launchpad shop. That is where we have our Starship Flight 5 limited edition gear with our very own catch attempt patch for Starship 5. We also have some incredible photos from our TLP rocket chaser Gavin, who is down at Starbase with the hurricane going through. We weren't able to get all of our team from here in Florida out to Texas, but we are grateful that Gavin and his dad were able to make that journey out. We also have John, one of our TLP advisors down at Starbase, making sure that the camera's online and everything there as well. So we're grateful to have at least a few people down on site. I know we got a lot of people tuning in from all over the world. It's great having you here. We got Chitan in India. Johan is in Sweden. Rodrigo says, first time watching a Starship live. Well, welcome. We're glad to have you here. I see Denmark, Netherlands, Malaysia, Sydney, Australia. Great to have you tuning in. I also see Norway, Pacifica, California, Utah, Norway, New Mexico, UK, Seattle, Washington, La Cruces, New Mexico, Ontario, Canada, UK, Australia, UK, and Wales. Great to have you all joining us here. The next 90 minutes is going to go pretty quickly, as in just 11 minutes time we are going to have that ever important go no go for propellant loading. Now SpaceX has a 30-minute launch window here today, something a little bit smaller than we've seen them have in the past, so they don't have a ton of time to delay if they're not ready for that propellant loading. Another interesting part, based on the current time of year, is what will lighting conditions be like? We've been watching those over the next few days, or for the last few days, and we should have some decent lighting, but it will not be full daytime lighting, as they are currently targeting liftoff at 7 a.m. local time, with sunrise now being, I believe it's 7:32 a.m. local time. We'll be in that early sunset time, but it should give some incredible views, and of course we'll have our camera and the SpaceX feeds patched in with their incredible cameras as we get closer to that liftoff point. They're going to begin their coverage about 35 minutes before liftoff, which is about 10 minutes after propellant loading starts. So maybe to get us started, if you guys have questions, you can send those in the chat by tagging us at the launch pad. I'll run us through the timeline of events that we're expecting to have happen here today, and then I'll get into those questions. Gives you guys a little bit of time to be able to send those in the chat. Just make sure you're tagging us at the launch pad. That really does help me out in being able to flag those questions as they come in, as well for our team. Here, we also do have a poll running in the chat. We want to hear from you guys. How do you think today's catch attempt is going to go? I think I'll start that on the new stream as well, so bear with me 1 second, but you can send in those comments and questions in the chat. If it's your first time here, though, here at the Launchpad, it is our mission to inform and inspire the explorers of tomorrow, because we believe that space is better together, and we bring you full live coverage of almost every launch from around the world. If we can get a camera there or someone there on site, we do try to bring you that live coverage. Now, for quick programming note, I know many of you are expecting to have Crew Dragon undocked for Crew 8 coming home. We were going to have Starship, we were going to have Falcon Heavy, we were going to have Blue Origin's new Shepard test flight. We're now down to just Starship and Blue Origin's test flight. Crew Dragon has delayed the undocking due to unfavorable weather conditions in the splashdown zone, and Falcon Heavy has been pushed to Monday. But of course, we will bring you full live coverage of those when they have new T0s or new timelines, and we're expecting most of those to now be tomorrow. So that helps break it down a little bit. You're not going to have to watch 5 streams all at one time, but just a quick little note there for all of you guys. But yeah, keep sending in those questions. I'm going to run through the timeline of events that we're expecting to have here today, and then we will get to your guys' questions in the chat. So all of today's operations really has been going on for hours, as they've closed the road, closed the beach, closed the pad, and now we're getting into where the activities of the actual launch really start to kick off. So at T-minus 1 hour, 15 minutes, or just a few minutes from now, that is when the SpaceX flight director will give a go-no-go poll for propellant loading. Should they be go, propellant will begin flowing into the ship, the liquid methane, 49 minutes, 50 seconds to flight, followed just under a minute later by liquid oxygen also flowing into Starship. Then propellant will start flowing into the booster 40 minutes, 40 seconds into flight, followed 6 minutes later by the liquid oxygen. Interesting note with that, propellant loading onto the Super Heavy booster is actually closer to T0 than it is with Falcon 9. They now are able to fuel this vehicle faster than a Falcon 9. We get down to 19 minutes, 40 seconds till liftoff, and they begin engine chill on both the boosters and the ship. Another thing we see earlier than on Falcon 9. Falcon 9, we see engine chill right around that 7-minute mark. Here it's at the 19 minutes, 40 seconds to liftoff. Propellant loading will complete on the ship 3 minutes, 20 seconds to liftoff, and booster 2 minutes, 50 seconds to liftoff. At T-minus 30 seconds, the SpaceX flight director will do a go-no-go for launch. The flame diverter will activate at T-minus 10. Raptor ignition begins at T-minus 3. It's a stage startup, and liftoff, obviously, at T0 to T+2 seconds. Max Q is expected 1 minute, 2 seconds into flight. This is the max mechanical stress on the rocket. 2 minutes, 23 seconds into flight, we have Super Heavy MECO-ish. Not all engines actually shut off on the Super Heavy booster when we get to that point. All but those 3 center ones do, as Starship performs what's called hot staging. This is when Starship's ship will actually ignite its Raptor engines while the booster is still burning a few of its engines while still all attached. The ship will then stage separate, and the booster will begin its flip back maneuver. Now this is where we're all going to be listening very closely and watching closely to see how the booster is performing. This is the ultimate moment when they have to decide, are they going for a catch attempt or are they going for splashdown? The Super Heavy booster is permanently programmed to go to the ocean. If they want it to be able to do a catch attempt, over 1,200 things have to be verified go, and a manual order from the launch director has to be sent to the booster. If that is not sent prior to boost back burn shutdown, boost back burn startup is at 2 minutes 48 seconds into flight. Shutdown 3 minutes 41 seconds into flight. If they do not send it in time for that burn to shut down accordingly, they will not be doing a catch attempt today. The booster will default to a splashdown location. If they send a manual command and the booster for some reason decides there is something wrong with it, it will go to the ocean. These are very smart vehicles, just like we see with Falcon 9 and Dragon, and for safety of Starbase and the RGV Valley, it is something that they are defaulting the programming at this point because it's still so new that the booster thinks it goes to the ocean unless they manually tell it not to. So this is going to be a very big moment. One of the big questions we all have and we don't really have an answer for is, If they lose a singular engine at any point in flight, are we done for the day for a catch attempt? Or can they still go? We'll have to wait and see. Continuing on the timeline, the hot staging ring will be jettisoned from the Super Heavy booster 3 minutes 43 seconds into flight. Super Heavy will be supersonic 6 minutes 8 seconds into flight, with its landing burn beginning about 25 seconds later. The Super Heavy will either splash down 6 minutes 50 seconds into flight, or have a catch attempt 6 minutes 56 seconds into flight. It all depends on that trajectory of it coming back down, which will be decided in that boost back burn. Unlike Falcon 9, the Super Heavy does not have an entry burn, it just has boost back and landing burns. Starship will shut down 8 minutes 27 seconds into flight and enter a coast phase until we enter that ever exciting re-entry period. Starship entry will begin 48 minutes 3 seconds into flight. It'll become transonic 1 hour 2 minutes 34 seconds. Subsonic 1 hour 3 minutes 43 seconds. It will perform the landing flip 1 hour 5 minutes 15 seconds. A landing burn at 1 hour 5 minutes 20, with hopeful soft splashdown 15 seconds later. And we'll hopefully get to see incredible views like we did last time via Starlink. Those views truly incredible that we saw during the last flight of kind of Flappy McFlapper holding on for dear life, but the ship still being able to perform that incredible re-entry. Of course, this will be only really the second time we've seen a full re-entry attempt, that we're hoping that we'll actually be able to see it all the way to the ground. SpaceX is testing some new technologies out on Starship. The last time Starship flew, they had just the Starship heat shield tiles. Now they have a new layer of ablative material under each tile coating the vehicle. So even if one of these tiles were to fall off or fail, there is still some ablative material to help restrict through that burn through. And we'll run a little bit more about these tiles a little bit later. This is a real part of a tile from Starship Flight 1, and you can see we've got a full tile from Flight 1 behind us from that. Previous flight, not many of these tiles fell off. Early flights, there was a lot more of them. So even there, we're seeing that mass innovation every time this vehicle flies, that there is a lot less issues that occur during the operations there. Now, lots of people are just tuning in. It's great to have you all joining us here. We got Manchester watching from Manchester, UK. It's going to be great. Catching up on your guys' questions in the chat that you were sending in. Lots of people still just tuning in. We got Kevin in Australia. Great to have you here. Laura is in Norway. Greetings from Russia. Dave's watching in Zimbabwe. Welcome. Great to have you here. If you guys have questions, you can keep sending those in the chat by tagging us at the Launchpad. We'll work on answering those live. Elon has confirmed they are still currently go for launch a few hours ago, so everything continuing to proceed towards today's liftoff attempt. Now, we are continuing to monitor the NASA WB-57 as it's making its way from Space Center Houston, or just by it, down to Starbase, Texas, in preparation for today's flight. We'll get that back on the screen here in just a second. There we go. You can see that. Not that screen. Starbase isn't live yet. So many windows. One moment, everybody. Want this one. There we go. You can see that WB-57 now inbound down towards Starbase, Texas. It's a much faster plane, so it's still got some time to get down there and get in position for today's flight. Be interesting to see what we get from it, because the previous flight ultimately didn't end up using the WB-57 like we saw on previous flights. So we definitely believe this has to do more with the booster operation and then the actual liftoff and flight of itself. The Sergeant saying the WP-57 gets the best views. It definitely does. Always incredible to see. And you're continuing to see that large vent down at Starbase as the tank farm is active. It is being conditioned and ready for propellant loading. And we are now imminently awaiting confirmation from SpaceX that we are go for propellant loading. This is they should be doing the go no go poll right now. So once we have that update, we will of course bring that to you. We're monitoring for that to come in the chat. Should see that coming in the next few minutes. That was due at the L minus 1 hour 15-minute mark. Keep a close eye on that. The Starbase security vessels are now out in the shipping channel, beginning to secure the port of Brownsville as we get close to that beginning of fueling operations. So we'll be keeping an eye on that as well. If you are down at Starbase, while we await the confirmation from SpaceX for propellant loading being authorized, a couple of quick notes. If you're down at Starbase, please remember this is a test vehicle. There is a high chance of failure during this, especially with the catch attempt. This will be a very loud launch and an even louder return. The FAA updating the sound chart of how far sound will travel, and the sonic boom will ring through Brownsville incredibly loudly. So please remember this, that there will be a loud launch and an even louder sonic boom with the catch attempt, and then bringing it back here to Earth to try to do a catch, or even if they bring it just close by in the Gulf, there will still be that sonic boom that will ring out. If for some reason there was a RUD on the pad or early stages of flight, or a RUD when it lands, especially more so if the leading part when it's on the pad and pre-liftoff in those early stages of flight. If you do see a failure and you're in person and you're within that 5-10 miles, please listen to this. It's going to sound crazy, but it will actually help save your life. Hit the ground, cover your head, but open your mouth. The shockwave that will come from Starship is equivalent to a nuclear blast if it is fully fueled. So pressure-wise, you need to lower yourself to the ground, and you need to open your mouth to help pressurize so you don't pop your eardrums. That is coming from multiple explosive experts. They told us that for Flight 1, that nothing has changed with these flights. This is just the scale of these type of vehicles. And in no way is that mean to scare anyone or say not to, if you can ever make it down for a launch, don't go. Definitely do, but know what you're going to witness and know the environment you're going to. When you go to Starbase and you stand at the side of the road and the ship is fully stacked and you are closer to it than just the booster is tall, let alone the booster and the ship, that is an incredibly pressurized vehicle. If it were to pop, it will have issues. So you just have to know where you're going and being smart about it and being cognitive of your surroundings as you are entering a test facility that just happens to be alongside a public road. Catching up on your guys' questions in the chat, Abe, have you any calculations in terms of probability the flight commander will issue this go for catch command and that the ship will not automatically abort the attempt? I personally don't have any calculations. I've talked to a few people about it. I think the booster's biggest concern will be all of its engines are running and all of its pressures are active. I think those would probably be the two biggest things it's looking at following the flip of the boost back. If I remember, long day. If I remember correctly, the last time we did lose a booster or two during the boost back and the landing burn, and I think it's going to be the systems will do checkouts to see how all of its engines are performing and making sure, because it needs enough of those engines to function to come down. And this is not like Falcon 9 where it comes down and just perfectly lands. This thing is going to have to hover, and then the chopsticks will come in and grab it, and they have to attach at a very specific point. So this thing doesn't hover for just 1 or 2 seconds. This has to hover for a few seconds so the chopsticks can finalize their catch. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this works. If, that's a very big if, they go today. And that's what we're all waiting to hear and see. You know, one of the big questions is what type of callouts will we hear? You know, for liftoff, we hear range go, booster go, ship go. Do we get to hear tower go? Is that going to be a new callout that we hear today? We'll have to wait and see. We are expecting kind of everyone's favorite hosts to be there. Jesse and John and many of the other SpaceX team that will be hosting today's live broadcast. And once they go live, of course, we will patch them in and listen in to Mission Control for updates on the count. We are continuing to await any sort of confirmation from SpaceX on the current status of propellant loading. That go-no-go should have occurred about 6 minutes ago, and we'll wait for that. They have a 30-minute launch window here today. So if for any reason they need to take longer in that time to be confirmed go, they do have the time to do so, but they don't have all day to make that decision either. So we'll be watching very closely as we get to that. We are expecting SpaceX to begin their live broadcast in about 45 minutes time. Once they're live, we will, of course, patch them in. And as I said, listen in to the mission control. Catching up on the rest of your guys' questions. Malcolm Swart says, will there be some light before launch? There should be some. It's definitely not going to be full daylight, but there will be some light around in the region as things get closer to liftoff and through propellant loading. Stephen, greetings, Zach, TLP crew, and chat, watching live here from Malaysia. Appreciate that, Stephen. Glad to have you here. Don is watching from Thailand. Welcome. Sammy is in Utah in the USA. Bill Brett asks a really interesting question. Why catch a rocket? Rapid reusability. So the idea with Super Heavy is the Starship will take minimum 90 minutes to come back around the Earth. But in that time, if you can catch the booster less than 8 minutes after liftoff and land it right back on the pad and everything checks out on the booster, you can have another ship waiting on the side. Tower picks up the ship, puts it on top, the payload's already in the ship. You do a go-no-go for prop load, and at the current timeline of events, they can do that all within, it's an hour 15. They could do it within an hour. Excuse me. They could do it within an hour, that go-no-go, and then immediately go into prop filling. Theoretically, you could relaunch that booster again prior to the other ship coming back around to land. And that is where the envisionment of Starship is, and the mass reusability. One of the ideas is that a booster can launch multiple times a day. A ship will probably be once a day or once every few days. So there's going to be a huge fleet of ships, and there's going to be an even larger fleet of boosters as things evolve and develop. Catching up on our team and hearing how conditions are going down there. I know we got Gavin and John out in the field, ready for today's flight attempt. L-1 hour, 6 minutes, 10 seconds and counting. We are awaiting that confirmation from SpaceX that they have had a go for propellant loading. Not seen anything just of yet, but that is what we are currently awaiting for to come into the chat and come in via X. Is that go for prop load? That's going to be the big question. Now, ultimately, we might not get it, but we can watch visually and see the tank farm spooling up more and more, and that will give us that envisionment of where we are in the timeline for that go, no go. I realize we did not tick our overlay across. Update that there. Get to that go, no go poll status. Hopefully have confirmation here in the next few minutes of propellant loading, but you can see that venting now on the tower. That definitely signals that we are going for this attempt here today. You can see the venting really starting to all pick up now at the Starbase. So I would say we have had that go for prop load as they get ready for flight here. We'll, of course, wait for SpaceX to release a statement. They normally do release one, but with all visual looks, we are into the early stages of propellant loading as they pressurize the kind of tubes and tanks across the pad. The launch orbital launch tank farm has been in preconditioning for the last couple of hours, getting pressurized, ready for this rapid fueling of the Starship Super Heavy rocket. Wendy Embridge at the launch pad for us newbies. Can you say what a jellyfish is, please? Absolutely. That's a great question. Thanks for saying that. And as always, if there's ever something I say or people are talking about in the chat that you're new and you don't know what it means, please do ask. We want to be able to help fill in those questions. But the jellyfish is a phenomenon that occurs with a fair amount of rockets in a very specific period of time. So many minutes before sunrise and so many minutes after sunset. When they launch, the plume that comes behind the vehicle, so kind of the exhausting cloud that comes out of a vehicle, when it is flying and the sun is hitting it at just the right angle, it creates this, for what we don't have a way of describing it other than it looks like a big jellyfish or nebula in the sky. I've had the amazing privilege of seeing it during my first flight with Inspiration 4. And that wasn't even the most incredible ones we've seen in the last few years. But even still, seeing that, it legitimately looks like a nebula portal is opening kind of like to another universe. But it happens at a very specific time of before and after sunrise and sunset. And that is what we are possibly going to see here today. If everything continues to that current T0, there is a chance we could see a jellyfish occur. But we also have never seen one of these yet during a Starship flight. So it'll be something new that we'll have to keep an eye out for. But yeah, everything is continuing to look nominal for today's flight. Lots of people are down in the Port Isabel, South Padre Island, Brownsville region, ready to go, but the tank farm is now well awake. You can see all that venting coming across the booster and the tower there, and still waiting for that go, no go from SpaceX. Nothing has come in officially yet, but we are imminently expecting it. But we can say, based on the things we are seeing on the screen, they have had that go for propellant loading for today's flight. So again, if you're just joining us, welcome. We're now just over an hour and just under an hour and 2 minutes away from liftoff of Starship Flight 5 and the first ever Super Heavy catch attempt. If you haven't yet, take a moment, engage that like button, share out the stream, invite people to join us. Mustafa at the launch pad, will the orbital path and profile be the same as the previous flight? It's nearly identical, other than the booster's return. So the ship will fly around and re-enter in the Indian Ocean, pretty close to Australia. Excuse me, need another coffee. So the ship will come down close to Australia in the Indian Ocean. The booster will come back down either in the Gulf or at the pad. Don Porter, $5 super chat. Love your broadcast. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. All of that goes into helping us advance our equipment, get more of our team out onto sites. We're working on plans already for Artemis 2 and 3. Lots of stuff in the works, including our 2 brand new apps. And those will be rolling out here hopefully soon. With the hurricane and the relocation, some things got delayed a little bit. But all of that goes into helping us bring you the best possible coverage of everything space. We're also getting ready, and I know we've said it for a few months now, to spool up our space news updates on our second channel, the Launchpad News. But I'll be getting into those over the next couple of weeks and starting to bring as many of those updates to you guys as I can on the daily news that is occurring around the space industry. There is so much happening in the space industry, it is hard to stay up to date on everything happening. Taking a look, though, at Starbase there, you can see there is a lot of venting happening around the pad. We have orbital launch mount venting, we have tower venting, we have recondenser venting, we have tank farm venting. Everything is venting, ready for today's flight. Henry, is there any chance that they will try to recover the ship, just like they did with the booster during Flight 4? So I'm assuming you're meaning when they sent out the ship and pulled it out of the ocean. For this one, it's a good question. Because, you know, they definitely could probably learn something from pulling the ship out of the ocean. But one of the things we'll have to keep, that would most likely be an issue with that, is the depth of the sea. In the Gulf of Mexico, where the booster came down, the ocean isn't that deep. It's a deep ocean, you're not swimming it. But it is not nearly as deep as something like the Indian Ocean. So it is a lot easier to go pick up a booster from the bottom of the Gulf of Mexico than it would be the Indian Ocean. So we'll have to see if they try to recover the booster, if they don't go for a catch attempt. The ships, though, they are just disposing. So if you do happen to have a massive ocean-faring vessel and cranes similar to what they use for the Titanic and would like to go on a adventure, call us at the launch pad. We'd love to go with you and capture some history from the bottom of the Indian Ocean, but very unlikely that you would even be able to, just based on the depths of that sea. Wendy, thanks so much for becoming a suborbital explorer. We appreciate that. Thanks for sending in those questions. You guys can keep sending those in by tagging us at the launch pad. We are now under an hour away from liftoff of Starship Flight 5. Everything continuing to look nominal in the timeline. You can see that WB-57 is inbound to Starbase. And the launch facility is really alive as we await that confirmation from SpaceX that we've had a go, no-go for propellant loading. Again, a quick programming note to those that were expecting the undocking of Crew Dragon with Crew 8. They are now delaying that due to unfavorable weather conditions off the coast of Florida. They are going to continue to monitor things. The next weather briefing is not planned until 11 a.m. on Monday, so likely that we're not going to see another undocking attempt for a couple of days at this point. So we'll be keeping a close eye on that as things continue towards the liftoff time here today. We'll wait to see if we can start to see some of that frost appear on the booster. That propellant loading onto the ship will start first with liquid methane, 49 minutes, 50 seconds into flight, or T0 into flight, excuse me. With liquid oxygen, 48 minutes, 40 seconds till liftoff. So we have about 7 minutes until we should see fuel begin to load onto the ship. ALBR-4, wouldn't they launch during the day for the cameras? So they'll be launching just before sunrise, so there will be still some daylight that will occur, but it will not be like full daylight. Just a casual person. Hello, Zach. Is there any information on Starship's in-space engine relight? So this time they have not listed that on the timeline of events. It is definitely possible we will see other testing while it is in low Earth orbit. But I really think this flight, their focus is catch attempt and re-entry attempt. I think that's all they're really focusing on this. And I think there's probably a really big reason why. If they can throw away a ship, but they can bring a booster back, they could theoretically start deploying Starlinks in the very near future. We also did see down at Starbase in the last couple of weeks, the Pez dispenser was moved into one of the mega bays with a ship. So more and more things pointing towards us getting ready to see maybe those very first Starlink V2s loaded onto a Starship on a future flight. Excuse me. We've been up all night ready for undock and no undocking. Malcolm, is there another view? We are working on getting more cameras out in the future. This one, just with Hurricane Milton passing through on the Space Coast, we had a lot of plans for Flight 5 with our team here in the Space Coast, like getting equipment ready to go out, other GoPros and stuff for remotes, and just with the hurricane, it just wasn't possible. Orlando International didn't open until it was like Friday morning, and even then it was limited flights. And you had to be down at Starbase by noon on Saturday for media opportunities. So unfortunately, it just was a lot more limited, and not being able to get everything down there for this flight. But Flight 6, we will have more. Helen Last, thank you so much for that 5, I believe that's pound, not euro, pound. I believe it's pound. Thanks, Zach and TLP team, for all you do. I appreciate that. Thank you so much, Helen. It's great to see you here. Been here for many years, and we appreciate that. I think we are back. Sorry about that, everyone. Bear with me one moment here. May have had a internet dropout again. Okay, sorry about that, everybody. It looks like we are back on air. We just had a dropout of our internet. I know some of our area is still without power. We'll hopefully not have one of those again. My apologies on that. We are working to get backup internet to have a secondary thing. We also went and had an Amber Alert just issued in our area at the same time. So it was very possible that our internet dropped because of that alert going out there, flooding the system there. If you are in the Brevard County area, please check your device on that Amber Alert. Getting back to where we were there. L minus 49 minutes, 10 seconds, and counting. We are at the point that propellant loading should now be underway on to the ship. Ship fuel load should be continuing, or should be beginning, and now at L minus 48 minutes and 40 seconds and counting, liquid oxygen should now start fueling on to the ship as well. Going to follow along in those steps as we continue through the timeline here today. Again, sorry about that glitch there. Hopefully not have that during flight. If you haven't yet, take a moment, engage that like button, share out the stream, invite people to join us. It really does help us out as we continue through live coverage there. I don't know when I dropped out. I know I was talking, answering just Helen's super chat there, £5. Thank you, Zach and TLP, for all you do. Thanks, Helen. Really do appreciate that. Recognize the name. You've been here many years, and really do appreciate your continued support as a member and just being part of this community. Kathy, it was a statewide Amber Alert. Okay, thank you. Yes, so if you're in the state of Florida, then you should have had that alert go out here this morning. Now L minus 47 minutes, 40 seconds, and counting till liftoff. Taking a look back at those live views on the live tracking of the WB-57, now on its way down to Starbase, Texas. Continuing to monitor the flight of the Starship. Flight 5, as we wait more updates from SpaceX. We've still yet to have a confirmation from them about today's flight timeline and how everything is progressing, but that's okay. Things we can get that a little bit later, and if not, we expect them to go live in not too long to give us an update on how things are progressing. And take us through those final minutes of the count. I did want to bring it up here again. I brought it up a little bit earlier ago. Our incredible rocket chaser Gavin is down at Starbase, Texas, and he brought in some photos that are now available over on the TLP shop. So if you want to be able to get a poster or a metal print of something from him to commemorate Flight 5 or even some of the previous flights, you can definitely do so. I'm going to bring up kind of two pictures here that Gavin took. One is from this mission, Flight 5, and one is actually from Flight 4, but it's just such a beautiful shot. We wanted to make sure that it had a moment in the spotlight, and is something that I want on my wall. I'm getting one for the new studio here, and think some of you guys may as well. So this is a new capture by Gavin that you can get over on our shop. You can get it as a metal print or a poster. One of many incredible pictures that he captured in the last really only 24 hours of getting down there, ready for the flight here today. We also have another picture that I'll work on getting on the screen here from the last flight attempt where they went down and had kind of a Cybertruck photo shoot in twilight, and it was really absolutely a beautiful evening down there the night before Flight 4. So if you're interested in this picture as well, we've got a ton of different posters from Starship to Falcon 9, Falcon Heavy, Vulcan over on our shop, so definitely check those out. Huge shout out again to all of our rocket chasers across kind of our crew around the world. Some incredible photos. Definitely go check those out. Helps them support them and support TLP. Appreciate Gavin and his dad making it out there for today's flight, even with very, very little notice for the opportunity to get down there for Flight 5. Again, we also want to say thank you to SpaceX for the opportunity to have some of our crew down there as official media for Flight 5. We do have remote cameras ready and set down near the pad for today. We didn't have any live streaming equipment, as I said. We just didn't have the time and the ability to get it down there following the hurricane. But we did get some remotes out there with Gavin, so make sure you fingers crossed that those work, and that we'll have some incredible views come in from those following liftoff here today. Continuing to follow along in the timeline, the next major event will be booster fuel loading, which is set to occur in just under 3 minutes. That's set to begin. Paul, thank you so much for $10. Prop loading yet? We are waiting to see that confirmation from SpaceX that prop loading has begun, but we are in that timeline that we should be into propellant loading. So that is the big thing that we are keeping an eye on. We see the venting that would symbolize that they are ready to begin propellant loading, but we of course always wait for SpaceX to confirm how things are progressing. They do only have a 30-minute launch window here today, so if they do not stick to this timeline super closely. They could run out of time for a liftoff here today if they don't get an extension to that launch window. And look at that. Speak of the devil, and he shows up in the chat. Gavin, it's awesome to see you in there, bud. I hope you guys have an awesome morning. Looks like it's going to be a beautiful day down at Starbase. Future streams, broadcasts, we're working to be able to patch Gavin in so you guys can hear from him and our other rocket chasers in the field. But definitely go check out those posters in the shop. You can also get, as we were saying, our limited edition Flight 5 patch merch as well. Those will be available for the next couple of weeks. So check those out. And also, heads up that it's coming. Our 2025 calendars are also in the works, so make sure you stay tuned to those. There's all the sales stuff out of the way. No one likes doing it. You guys don't like hearing it. We're here for Starship. That's what's exciting. So we're going to focus back on that. Minus 42 minutes, 20 seconds and counting for today's flight. Things continuing to look good for liftoff here today. If you guys have questions, you can keep sending those in the chat by tagging us at the launch pad, and we'll work on answering those live while we continue through today's flight. We'll be patching in SpaceX when they begin their live coverage, which we expect to begin in about 15-20 minutes. So once we have that from them, we will, of course, patch that in. We're continuing to follow along on X for updates from them as well. We have not had any confirmation on propellant loading as of yet, but once we have it, we will, of course, be listening in. Catching up on your guys' chat. Again, we want to hear from you guys. How do you think today's booster catch attempt will go? Do you think we're going to see a run of the booster in flight? Do you think we're going to see booster splashdown with no catch attempt? Do you think they're going to go for a catch attempt? And if so, are we going to see a boom arm failure, or are we going to see a successful catch? And I'd love to see that with over 7,000 votes between our two broadcasts, over 60% of you think they're going to have a successful catch. I feel like I identify with the 20% of you that think they're going to go for a catch attempt and it's probably not going to work well. And about 10-11% of you think that they won't do a catch try. Now, the 9% of you that think the super heavy booster is going to explode, I think those of you, we need to sit down and have a little chat. we knock on wood, have not seen that yet. We sort of did with Flight 1, but it got to stage well, it did some flips and then failed. Flight 1 was a special flight. That was a long time ago. We don't do that with super heavy anymore. So let us know what you guys think in the chat. Henry, is that patch made by you? Either way, it looks great. Yeah, I've done all of our Starship patches, so we've done one for every flight. We're working to we always release them as like a limited collection. We are working to try to get the actual patches out. I know some people have asked for them, but we have them on shirts, hoodies, stickers. So if you like stickers, we have them in regular stickers and in holo, because who doesn't love a holographic sticker? So definitely check that out. And we try to keep all of our stuff a lot lower in cost than many of the others. We're not trying to make billions of dollars off of our merch. We're trying to cover our costs and provide you guys the ability to get merch and just apparel that you would want to wear kind of in everyday gear. I'm wearing our Starship Repeat tee right now, which is just a really great shirt to have as a space fan. You know, it's not super merchy. It's just a good everyday shirt. So we definitely take some time to check out the shop. We've got a little bit of time as we continue waiting for an update from SpaceX on how things are progressing. But the orbital launch mount and the tower are venting. The fill lines should be chilled. And based on the current timeline, 38 minutes, 54 seconds, we should be underway of booster fuel load at this point now. So we'll continue to progress that timeline down until we have more information from SpaceX on what their current status is. It did some flips. It's crazy when you think about the scale of that thing. It really is, Henry, and I was there for it. And that's quite amazing. And there is that update we were expecting from SpaceX. The Starship team is go for propellant load, and the weather is looking ideal for today's test flight. Launch webcast will go live 35 minutes ahead of liftoff, which is currently targeting 7:25 a.m. Central Time. So we have had an update to that launch T0. We're going to update our countdown clock here. Originally 8 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. local. They are now targeting 7:25 for liftoff, which is 5 minutes left in today's launch window. So we'll update that T0. There is the T0. Now with that update, that does mean we need to check backwards on our box, as we are currently sitting at tank farm active. We are at L-1 hour, 2 minutes, 42 seconds, and counting to the newly scheduled T0 of 7:25 a.m. As always, if you guys have questions, you can send those in the chat by tagging us at the Launchpad. We will work on answering those as we continue through the countdown. I'm going to take a very quick commentary pause, get a refresh beverage, so I hopefully stop coughing for you guys, and we will be right back. So stay with us right here on the Launchpad as we continue our countdown to launch for the historic Starship Flight 5, and maybe the first ever catch attempt of the Super Heavy booster. Stay with us. And good morning. If you are just joining us, welcome here to the launch pad and our continuing countdown to launch coverage for Starship Flight 5. We are counting down now, just the final minutes until liftoff. We're expecting SpaceX to begin their live launch coverage here in the next few minutes, and we'll of course patch them in and listen in to an update on the timeline. Currently L-41 minutes, 30 seconds and counting. Both liquid oxygen and liquid methane are now fueling the Starship ship, and booster loading will begin in just about a minute's time, beginning with the liquid methane, followed by liquid oxygen as well. SpaceX is set to go live roughly 35 minutes before liftoff, so we're keeping a close eye on that, and we are ready to patch them in the moment that they do go live to listen in to their timeline. We'll keep up our pad camera in the top left corner above me here, and then we will patch them in on the side here, so you guys can have a good split view of everything going on as we get closer to that kind of targeted liftoff time. But we are keeping a close eye on that as the timeline progresses. Now, as always, if you guys have questions, you can send those in the chat by tagging us at the launch pad, and we'll work on answering those live while we continue through our coverage here. If you haven't yet, though, take a moment, share out the stream, invite people to join us. It really does help us out, and we would appreciate that. You don't have to super chat to ask your questions either. You can just send those in the chat by tagging us at the launch pad. I know we got people tuning in from all over the world, and we're honored to have you joining us here as we count down now just 40 minutes and counting till the 5th ever flight test of Starship, and hopefully the first ever catch attempt of a super heavy booster. We want to hear from you guys. What do you think how today's going to go? There's a poll in the YouTube chat. Definitely take a moment and answer that as well. And as John says, this is better with sun. Yes, now that we have that little bit of extra time on the timeline, we should have an even better view here today, now that they've delayed that time. They had a 30-minute window opening at 7 a.m., and now they are targeting 7:25 a.m. local time. So that does only leave 5 minutes left in the launch window. But that does mean we'll be able to have those better live views, hopefully, with the clearer cameras now that the sun is starting to rise. But propellant loading appears to be underway, and we're waiting for SpaceX to begin their commentary coverage. We have been hearing that the traffic down on the island is quite busy. Getting in preparation for today's liftoff. If you do happen to be down on site and take photos or videos of today's launch, make sure you send us those over on social media, TLPN_official on X, or you can send it to us via our Discord. That's where our community hangs out in between streams. We'd love to see you guys in there. The link is in the description and in the chat if you're interested in jumping on to our Discord there today. We got aviation watching from Guelph, Ontario. We got Stan in Northwest Louisiana. Matt saying good evening from Australia. We got George, sorry if I'm saying that wrong, from Greece. Welcome. Great to have you here. We are at L-38 minutes, 15 seconds and counting. And if everything is continuing on that timeline, booster fueling is now underway with liquid methane. Liquid oxygen will begin flowing at L-34 minutes on to the booster, and at that point we should have the SpaceX feed up and running to confirm that timeline. We're waiting for them to go live here as we continue through the timeline. Another quick programming note, we are getting ready to begin our live coverage of Blue Origin's New Shepard 27 launch. This is a test flight of a brand new Shepard crew-rated booster. And we were talking about this in our crew back chat that during my commentary break there, that we are going to have a Starship in flight, a super heavy booster on its return, while Blue Origin is launching and landing a booster. Truly a new era in space exploration, having multiple vehicles in flight at the exact same time, which is really, really awesome to be in that type of era compared to where we were 5-6 years ago. As the timeline continues, L-37 minutes and counting. See that sunrise now beginning on the Texas Space Coast. We're waiting SpaceX to begin that live feed. You'll bear with me as I... Okay, and there we have confirmation. Prop load of the Super Heavy booster is now underway. That is confirmed by SpaceX. And that is a great point that we should be continuing their timeline, and we should be seeing them beginning their live broadcast, as they were set to do that at the L-35 minute mark. You guys can keep sending in your comments and questions. I'll be answering those as we get through today's timeline, but also we'll be answering those through the coast phase. We'll be staying live all the way through this, so keep in mind this is not going to be a quick flight. We are going to have coverage all the way through ship landing and the booster landing wherever it lands. Is it going to be the ocean or is it going to be the arms? We will have to wait and see, but we are getting ever closer to finally having an answer on where that will be. For SpaceX to begin that live broadcast. The countdown is in the top right corner of your screen. I see a couple people asking where that is. Above me is a live view of the WB-57 from NASA, which is currently down in the region, ready to help support today's mission operation. Booster LOX load expected to begin in just about 90 seconds from now. And at that point, we will have liquid methane and liquid oxygen flowing onto both the first and second stage of both vehicles. Up on your guys' chat, while also making sure that we stay up to date on SpaceX's updates. Chris, is Starship optimistic they can get a catch? I don't think they'd be trying if they didn't think they had a good chance of attempting a catch. I think most people think if they go for it, it's probably not going to go perfect. But the big question is, does it go semi-perfect? Do they at least catch it and then something else break or something, right? Like, you know, that would still be a huge milestone. Think Flight 1, they got off the ground, but not very well. Flight 2, they got really far, right? So there's these milestones that they hit. David, thank you so much for those 5 gifted memberships. I really appreciate that. All goes into helping support what we do. Again, a little heads up, if you are in the Houston area, Starship is visible from Houston up on the northern horizon, so something to keep in mind if you're there. Look to the south and you may be able to see Starship streaking across your sky in the early morning. Awaiting the SpaceX live broadcast, we should now be in booster LOX load as well. You can start to see that venting from the different points of the ship and the booster, definitely starting to make that very clear that we are well into propellant loading on the ship. A great sign that we are going for a launch attempt here today. If you haven't yet, take a moment, share out the stream, invite people to join us. That's a little bit behind in starting their live broadcast. The moment we have it, we will patch it in. L-33 minutes and counting till launch. Fueling well underway onto both vehicles of liquid oxygen and liquid methane. SpaceX is spooling up their broadcast. We are going to patch them in, and they're very exciting music. And of course, listen in to their commentators for updates. As I said, we'll continue to bring you commentary coverage throughout today's broadcast, so you can keep sending those in the chat while we listen in to SpaceX, and we'll work on answering those in our chat as well while we continue through the timeline here. SpaceX is getting underway. And And let's get ready to listen in to SpaceX mission control as we count down to the historic 5th flight test and first ever booster catch attempt of the Super Heavy booster. If you haven't yet, take a moment, share out the stream, invite people to join us. It's a historic morning down at Starbase and a historic day for space exploration. We've got many friends that work at SpaceX. We're super excited for them to see here today. Off the Grid Ham Radio, thanks for helping us. Thanks for keeping us up-filled with SpaceX excitement. I appreciate that. Thank you so much for that super chat there. Gotta love a Cybertruck and the Starship. They just go so well together. Above me, you're looking at a live view from our TLP 24/7 camera down at Starbase. To my side, you're looking at the live views from SpaceX, and we're going to get ready to listen in to SpaceX mission control as we count down to launch. That should have been not playing out loud, but it was anyways. Sorry about that. As we count down to liftoff here, L-31 minutes and counting to launch. We will sync our T0 with SpaceX's T0 in just a moment. Let's listen in to SpaceX mission control as we count down to the historic 5th flight test of the Starship Super Heavy program.
It is 6:54 a.m. in Starbase, Texas, a gorgeous sunrise, and Starship is targeting liftoff in just 30 minutes and 18 seconds from now at 7:25 a.m. Central Time. As you can see, it is a beautiful day in South Texas for the 5th flight test of Starship. Good morning, Star people. I'm Kate Tice.
And I'm Jesse Anderson, and we are joining you live from SpaceX Hawthorne with a great big crowd here this morning. It's been roughly 4 months since our last Starship flight, and we've got a big morning ahead of us.
Flight 5, has a few primary objectives and one big first. We may be attempting to catch the Super Heavy booster. The teams at Starbase have been hard at work around the clock upgrading hardware across the entire tower with focus on the chopsticks, the 2 mechanical arms that will reach out and catch the returning booster. We're only going to attempt the catch if everything on the booster and tower checks out after launch, but either way, excitement is definitely guaranteed.
Definitely. Today's Starship features a completely reworked heat shield with stronger tiles and a secondary layer, which is an extra layer of protection for the ship that will protect from any of the that will help protect if there's any missing or damaged tiles. Now, not only did we replace the entire heat shield with our newest generation of stronger tiles for today's flight, we'll also be flying a handful of aluminum tiles that are there to help the team understand the thermodynamic environment during re-entry. If you were with us for Flight 4, you'll know how hard those heat shield tiles worked during the ship's re-entry.
Did they ever? As you can see there, they worked incredibly hard. This big heat shield rework that we're talking about promises to increase the likelihood of Starship being better protected during controlled re-entry as it heads towards its flip maneuver and landing burn for a soft splashdown on target in the Indian Ocean, just like we did in Flight 4. And we'll have to wait and see. Keep your fingers crossed, but we may have some new views in store for you today as well.
Right, like all test flights, we want to learn as much as possible, and views of Starship during all phases of flight help us to keep improving the vehicle for recovery and reuse.
Now, thinking forward to when Starship is flying regularly, it will take the heaviest payloads to space, land humans on the moon again after more than half a century, and ultimately fly people further into space than ever before. And getting there will require us to rapidly iterate and fly often, which is why we're working so hard to scale operations at Starbase.
Yeah, the faster that we learn now, the faster we can improve and evolve Starship to achieve reliable flights and rapid reusability. We've been designing this vehicle from day one to realize a vision of having an entire city of people on Mars, something we know will take launching millions of pounds of cargo and equipment into space spread across thousands of flights. This future will require many Starships that can fly again and again, and today's flight is a critical step on that path.
So buckle up your seatbelts because here we go. The moon and Mars are not nearly as far in the future as you may think. In fact, we're planning to send Starships to Mars as soon as 2026.
You might be familiar with the Starlink logo, and there you can see it on your screen. It's an iconic representation of the Mars transfer orbit, also called the Hohmann transfer orbit. This is how fundamental Mars is to SpaceX. This transfer window, or a time when the Earth and Mars are the closest to each other, opens every 26 months and is only open for about 2 to 3 months at a time for a vehicle with Starship's power. And it just so happens that the next Mars transfer window opens in 2 years towards the end of 2026.
Yeah, lining up a launch to Mars is similar to how we launched to the International Space Station, where we time launches to match the station's orbit. If we didn't do this, we'd need more propellant and more time to get there.
Exactly. So the first opportunity that we have to fly starships to Mars, we plan on doing it. These first flights to Mars will be uncrewed and will test the reliability of landing intact. If those landings go well, the first crewed flights will follow soon after.
So it's safe to say it's all happening, and flights like today's are what's going to get us there. Not only have we made several improvements to the Starship flying today based on what we've learned from our last flight, including extensive upgrades to Starship's hardware and software, we've also made improvements to the launch tower and catch mechanisms.
And if you've noticed in some of the live views this morning, our teams have completed stacking the second launch tower, which will be coming online next year. Having 2 operational launch towers paired with ships and boosters rolling off the line in our new Star Factory will allow us to increase our flight cadence and test even more rapidly. And just a few miles away from the 2 towers, things are moving really fast at the heart of Starbase. Star Factory is rapidly coming online, with production teams already using the space as construction continues. The 1 million square foot Star Factory brings many parts of the manufacturing process under one roof for the first time, enabling moving as much system integration work as possible earlier in the build process, with the goal of eventually producing hundreds of starships a year.
That's crazy. It's such an impressive building. So, for example, teams can assemble an entire nose cone structure of a ship into a single piece and work on its internal systems all in one place. So if you're working on Starship and you have a question about the steps that you're working that happen before or after yours, instead of having to leave the building and go and find the person or the team with the answer, or waste time sending an email and waiting for their response, odds are you're right next to that person or team, and now you're working right alongside them, so you don't have to wait for a response.
Yeah, exactly. It makes it a lot more efficient and faster to communicate. So not only are we rapidly iterating on these spacecraft themselves, but we're also innovating the way that they're made.
It's almost too much to keep up with.
We're also posting updates on our account on X. If you can't keep up, that'll help you. So if you don't already, make sure that you follow us at SpaceX on X. And I have a feeling it's going to get pretty busy.
Oh, that is definitely an understatement.
And it's definitely going to be very exciting today. So with that, let's meet today's Starship on the pad. Starship features 2 major parts: the ship, which has 6 Raptor engines, and the Super Heavy booster, which has 33 Raptor engines. The current iteration of Starship is essentially an experimental vehicle flying for development. With a few planned upgrades, Starship will have 3 times the thrust of Saturn V, plus the added benefit of full reusability. Starship 2 will be capable of carrying more than 100 tons to orbit, and Starship 3 will be able to lift more than 200 tons to orbit. The amount of mass we're able to launch per rocket is crucial to creating a self-sustaining city on Mars.
Now, to get a sense of how big Starship is, let's start with the average size human, which is about 2 meters high. Towering over our average human is the length of the Millennium Falcon, which comes in at 35 meters. Our Falcon 9 rocket, with the payload fairing attached, is double the size of the Millennium Falcon, standing at 70 meters. And nearly twice the size of that is the fully integrated Starship at 121 meters tall. The ship itself is about 50 meters tall, and the Super Heavy booster alone stands about 71 meters. And even crazier, eventually the ship and booster will get even taller with future design iterations.
Can't imagine it being taller than that. Starship's first stage has a diameter of roughly 2.5 times that of Falcon 9, and with 33 much larger Raptor engines, which you can see there on your screen. Moving up the vehicle, the ship features 6 Raptors, 3 sea-level engines, and 3 vacuum engines, which are optimized to operate in the vacuum of space. The ship is designed for vertical takeoff and landing on any hard surface, like the surface of the moon. The ship is also outfitted with 4 flaps to help aerodynamically control the vehicle's attitude during atmospheric flight and enable a precision landing.
To reach full reusability, ship must survive entry not just once, but over and over again. It took the teams at SpaceX about 3 years to develop the heat shield on Starship, and development for improvements is still ongoing. The ship's heat shield is composed of 18,000 hexagonal ceramic tiles designed to insulate the vehicle during atmospheric entry, where temperatures can be as high as 2,600 degrees Fahrenheit. And naturally, the tiles are designed for rapid reuse with no refurbishment between flights. As we mentioned earlier, today's Starship features a completely reworked heat shield with stronger tiles and a secondary protective layer. This promises to increase our chances of Starship making it through a controlled re-entry and hopefully a little more intact this time around. And in between our first and second stages is our hot stage, which we last saw in action on flights 2, 3, and 4. Speaking of, let's take a trip back in time and talk about that last flight. On June 6th, Starship successfully lifted off at 7:50 a.m. Central Time from Starbase, Texas, cleared the launch tower, and went on to accomplish several major milestones and firsts. As you can see there, Super Heavy booster lifted off successfully and completed a full duration ascent burn. I love the view of the sound waves there. Following separation, Super Heavy booster successfully completed its flip maneuver, boost back burn as well to send it toward the splashdown zone, and it also jettisoned the hot stage adapter, as you can see there. We don't have to jettison that adapter in future iterations because it'll be a different design. Now, as you can see here, the booster is returning back to Earth using those hypersonic grid fins to steer it towards a precise landing in the Gulf of Mexico. The footage that we have coming up here, there it is from the buoy. I still remember seeing this on X for the first time, and it was so incredible to see that booster coming down, ending its flight with a soft splashdown 7 minutes and 24 seconds into the flight, and the crowd went wild.
And so did we. Starship's 6-second stage Raptor engine successfully powered the vehicle to space and placed it on a trajectory that would re-enter less than one orbit later over the Indian Ocean. And following a coast phase in space, Starship re-entered the Earth's atmosphere, successfully making it through the phases of peak heating and max aerodynamic pressure, and demonstrating the ability to control the vehicle using its flaps while descending through the atmosphere at hypersonic speeds. And of course, Starlink on Starship once again enabled real-time telemetry and live high-definition video throughout every phase of entry, with external cameras providing views all the way to the flight's conclusion.
Flight 4 ended with Starship, with, again, the crowd going bonkers, with Starship igniting its 3 center Raptor engines and executing the first flip maneuver and landing burn that we had seen since our high-altitude campaign. And that was followed by a soft splashdown of the ship in the Indian Ocean 1 hour and 6 minutes later.
And we were all glued to the monitors, watching the little flap that could the whole way down. Seeing the landing burn and splashdown was an incredible moment for the entire SpaceX team, and we'll be looking out for many more of these incredible moments today.
All right, so while today's mission profile is similar to Flight 4, we got a couple new test objectives, including catching the booster back at the launch tower.
In about 18 minutes from now, Super Heavy will ignite its 33 Raptor engines and lift off from Starbase. A little more than 2.5 minutes into flight, the Super Heavy booster will separate from the ship in a hot stage separation. After that separation, the booster will perform a flip maneuver followed by a boost back burn. And about 2 seconds after that burn ends, we'll jettison the booster's hot stage. As it heads back towards the ground, the booster will either attempt a landing, landing burn, but then will either return to the tower or splashing down in the Gulf of Mexico.
Meanwhile, the ship's engines will remain lit for just under 6 minutes during its ascent phase before shutting down for the coast. The ship will coast for about 40 minutes or so, reaching a peak altitude of about 213 kilometers. After that coast phase, the ship will be attempting a controlled re-entry, including a flip maneuver and landing burn, like we saw on Flight 4, just before splashing down in the Indian Ocean. Now, we say attempting because, again, this is just a test and nothing is guaranteed.
Except excitement.
Well, of course there is that. Now, both the booster and ship have to contend with some extreme conditions on re-entry, which is where those heat shield tiles will be put to the test.
For this flight test, we do not expect to recover any hardware from the ship. With the exception of Falcon, this is no different than what happens to most rockets flying today that are expended, meaning that they fall into the ocean after completing their mission. Eventually, we will return and reuse Super Heavy boosters and Starships as we do today with Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy boosters. And in fact, we've landed Falcon boosters 352 times to date.
Oh, man, I hear you say that number, and that is just wild. I still remember the night, or at least most of the night, that that Falcon landed for the first time, and it still feels like yesterday.
Yeah, definitely one of my favorite moments at SpaceX. And returning Super Heavy promises to be an even more impressive sight and a huge moment on the road to rapid reusability.
Yeah, speaking of rapid reusability, future Starship designs will give Super Heavy boosters a lighter weight and integrated hot stage intended for full reusability, which will mitigate the need to jettison the hot stage like we'll do today. Similarly, even though ship recovery is not expected, the telemetry and data we receive all the way to the end is what we're what we're looking for, and is what will get us to a rapidly reusable Starship of the future.
Yeah, exactly. In other words, just like previous Starship flights, the payload for this mission is the data. All right. Now that we have a handle on today's flight test, let's check in with Dan, who is right in the middle of the action. He's just a few kilometers from Starship on the pad. How's it going, Dan?
It's going great, Jesse. Welcome back to Starbase, everybody. It's been far too long. Little change of scenery this time. Right behind me is the Launch Control Center, where our flight controllers are counting down to our liftoff at 7:25 a.m. Central. We are a little bit later in our window. The main reason is we're working to clear out the range. Have not been tracking any technical issues so far to preclude that launch. So 7:25 a.m. Central, 12:25 UTC is what we're marching down to. As you can see, we're actively loading propellants on board Super Heavy and Starship. Liquid methane for your fuel, liquid oxygen for the oxidizer. Prop load on the ship started at about T-minus 49 minutes, booster at T-minus 40 minutes. We're going to keep loading propellants on those vehicles right down to the wire. Ship will close out at about 3 minutes and 20 seconds before T0, and then booster just about 30 seconds later. Now, with our startup sequence, it's going to look very similar to what you saw on Flight 4. We already tested it with this booster and its static fire. We're going to see the Raptors start to make fire at about T-minus 3 seconds, and then we'll start them up in 3 different banks. The first inner 13 will fire, and then about a second later, 15 of the outer ring engines, and then about 0.8 of a second after that, those final 5. Another reminder, if we need to hold, we have a built-in spot at T-minus 40 seconds. We can hold for stuff like if we need to finish clearing the range or if any other technical issues pop up, just kind of in the last second. But if there's nothing holding us back, we're going to go right past that and go down to 0. So, I mean, as of right now, we're just under 14 minutes away from liftoff, not working any technical issues. Range is expected to clear. We're just clearing out a few more boats. And as you can see, the weather is perfect. We had 100% go for launch from the weather officer, so that was pretty unprecedented and something we really like to hear. If we're not able to go today, since we are loading prop, it would likely be about 48 hours before our next attempt. But good thing we're going to launch today. Really looking forward to being able to turn around and see it this time, counting down to 7:25 a.m. Central. And I'll see you guys in a couple of minutes. I'll send it back to you in Hawthorne.
Thanks, Dan. Now, one of the most exciting objectives for Flight 5 today is attempting to return the booster to the launch site that you see right there, and it will be caught by the tower. We refer to this simply as booster catch.
As you've heard us say, Starship and Super Heavy are designed to be rapidly reused, which is why we've developed a novel way of returning the vehicles that leverages the same hardware we use for stacking ahead of flight.
Right now, when we recover our Falcon boosters, they either return to a separate landing zone on land or to a drone ship in the ocean, both of which require time to transport the vehicle back to the launch site. In order for us to achieve truly rapid reusability, we need a quicker turnaround. And you can't get much faster than returning the launch vehicle right back to the launch site where it needs to be in order to launch again.
For today's booster catch attempt, while there are thousands of criteria that need to be met, there are 3 primary gates that will be in play. In order to proceed, automated checks have to indicate we have a healthy booster and a healthy tower, and the flight director must issue a manual command, which is informed by manual checks from the flight control team. If this command is not sent prior to the completion of the boost back burn, or if automated health checks show unacceptable conditions with Super Heavy or the tower, the booster will default to a trajectory that takes it to a landing burn and soft splashdown in the Gulf of Mexico.
Now, thinking to the future when we're operational, after a booster returns to the launch tower, it will be inspected and reloaded with propellants and then ready to launch another ship to orbit. For today's test, however, we're only going to attempt the catch, like Jesse said, if everything on the booster and tower checks out after launch. And of course, we will let you know as soon as we know if it's a go. And we're going to be listening very keenly for that call out. Now, as always, we accept no compromises when it comes to the safety of the public and our team. So to that end, the area all around the pad and the flight path are cleared well in advance.
Exactly. A lot of things have to go right in order to line up the booster catch. So don't be surprised if we don't attempt the catch today. Either way, today's flight will generate data that will continue to inform our future flights and help us get to that operational cadence.
Yeah. Oh, you can't forget what else it will generate.
Are you thinking what I'm thinking?
I mean, I was going to say a sonic boom.
Oh, I was going to say excitement, but that's a really good reminder.
Now, if we do make it to a catch attempt today, Super Heavy may generate a sonic boom upon its return. And that's basically a brief thunder-like noise that we hear when an aircraft or other object travels faster than the speed of sound. Anyone that has been in the area for a Falcon 9 land landing in Florida or California, or even some space shuttle landings, may have heard one of these.
Generally, the only impact in those surrounding areas of a sonic boom is the brief noise, with variables like weather and distance impacting if or how the sonic boom is heard. Here's a brief look at how these sonic booms look and sound on Falcon.
I know a lot of people.
And if you're just joining us, welcome here to the launch pad. You are joining us at a really exciting time. We are now just less than 10 minutes away from the historic 5th flight test of Starship, and maybe the first ever Super Heavy catch attempt. Above me is a look at our very own TLP Starbase camera, which is part of our 24/7 camera that you can normally watch in between our Starbase launch coverage and updates. And on the right is a live view at the live feed from SpaceX. We'll be keeping both on. We are going to try to see if we could attempt to track with our own camera, but of course we'll be keeping a close eye on the SpaceX feed as we count down the final 9 minutes 30 seconds and counting till liftoff. If you haven't yet, take a moment, share out the stream, invite people to join us. Everything is tracking to a go for launch. It sounds like the only reason we had a delay was them clearing out the range and being ready for liftoff. Everything green on Starship on the range, as we are now just 9 minutes 4 seconds away from liftoff. Let's listen in to SpaceX Mission Control as we count down the final minutes.
For Starship taking astronauts to the moon as part of NASA's Artemis program. SpaceX will perform one uncrewed demonstration flight before NASA's Artemis 3 mission, which will be the first human surface expedition since 1972. Also, in preparation for missions to the moon and Mars, we're gaining tons of knowledge from our human spaceflight missions, including free flyer flights like our recent commercial astronaut mission, Polaris Dawn.
Polaris Dawn was the first of up to 3 missions in the Polaris program, which is demonstrating new technologies, conducting extensive research, and will culminate in a flight of Starship with humans on board.
After nearly 5 days in orbit, Dragon and the 4-person Polaris Dawn crew safely splashed down on September 15th off the coast of Florida, completing the first human spaceflight mission of the Polaris program. The Polaris Dawn crew performed some incredible firsts during their mission. Dragon and the crew reached 1,408.1 kilometers, the highest Earth orbit ever flown, and the farthest humans have been from our planet since the Apollo program.
The crew also performed the first ever commercial EVA, or extravehicular activity. And as you can see there, they were wearing the new EVA suits that we developed here in-house. This was an incredible moment to see Jared and then later Sarah emerge and perform this EVA with Earth behind. Now, in addition to this incredible spacewalk, they also conducted about 36 research studies and experiments from 31 partner institutions, including NASA. And in addition to all of that, they also tested Starlink laser-based communications in space. The data gathered from Polaris Dawn missions is invaluable, much like the data that we're going to see after today's flight test of Starship. So we're coming down to T-minus about 7 minutes. Let's check in with Dan.
Hey, thanks, Kate. So yeah, we're right at about 7 minutes away from launch. The main thing we are still working is that range clear. Again, we have to make sure boats, airspace, everything is cleared out of the way for our ascent corridor, basically the Gulf of Mexico, where we're launching through before we can actually launch. And so we're working on clearing out just a few more boats. We do have a window, remember. So if we end up holding at like a T-minus 40 seconds, we can hold for several minutes, allow those boats to get out of the way, and then we can launch. Our window is from 7 to 7:30 Central, so we don't have a huge amount of time today, but we do have some margin if we need to work with it to still get off the ground today. For now, though, we're coming up on finishing prop load on both vehicles. Header tanks are pretty much topped out on the ship. Those are going to be used for its landing burn. And again, we're going to be closing out all of the prop load at about T-minus 3 minutes, 20 seconds for the ship, and then just 30 seconds later for booster. One kind of cool thing to talk about, so the folks in launch control behind me, after liftoff, they're going to have some pretty special tasks today if we're going to go through with the catch. They're going to be doing some really detailed inspections just visually of all of the different tower systems, a lot of those things that we upgraded, just to make sure that we are in the right posture to actually proceed with the catch. So they'll be working kind of fast and furious behind the scenes to inform the flight director's manual command to send the booster back. So if we hear that command being sent, that's going to be just the roof's going to come off. That's going to be a really exciting moment. So otherwise, if we don't go today, as you guys talked about, there is a chance, and if we don't send the booster back, we'll do a landing burn and a splashdown in the Gulf. And then that's just another landing burn to gather more data, learn more lessons from, and then we'll come back and try the catch again on the next one. But as of right now, we're coming up on 5 minutes. There is a chance that we'll hold or extend into the end of our window, so don't be surprised if that ends up happening. But if those boats do get out of the way, we are just about 5 minutes away from launch. So I'll check back in just a moment, but back over to you, Kate and Jesse.
Thanks, Dan. Our rapid iterative development approach has been the basis for all of SpaceX's major innovative advancements, including Falcon, Dragon, and Starlink. Today, we're testing hardware and systems, and we need to know how they perform under the most extreme conditions. We'd much rather find the bugs now during testing than later on when there's more on the line. And to reiterate, while we do determine an acceptable level of technical risk on our vehicle and pad in order to learn as fast as possible, we accept no compromises when it comes to the safety of the public or our team. So that is to say, this is only the fifth of many future flight tests of Starship before it becomes fully operational.
You might remember the Starlink panels that are incorporated into Starship, and you can see them there on your screen, those rectangular panels on Starship's nose cone. Starlink brings us the epic views in space and on re-entry, and also helps deliver us the critical flight data engineers need to continue development. In addition to enabling our rapid iteration on Starship, Starlink is also enabling life-saving communication here on Earth. SpaceX is sending tens of thousands of Starlink kits in response to Hurricanes Helene and Milton, and providing free service through the end of the year to support recovery efforts. The Starlink team also worked with T-Mobile to activate our direct-to-cell satellites to provide basic texting on T-Mobile and emergency alerts for all phones and carriers of those in affected areas. If a phone connects to a Starlink satellite, it will have 1 to 2 bars of signal and show T-Mobile SpaceX in the network name. SpaceX's direct-to-cell constellation has not been fully deployed, so these services are being delivered on a best effort basis.
Starlink is enabling life-saving communication here on Earth and continues to help us push the limits in space. In the short term, by providing great views and real-time data on our next few flights, particularly through re-entry, which historically is a blackout period for all communications.
And if you're just joining us, welcome here to the launch pad. We are at T-minus 2 minutes, 35 seconds and counting till launch. of the historic 5th flight test of Starship and possibly the first ever catch of a Super Heavy booster. If you haven't yet, take a moment, share out the stream, invite people to join us in the last few seconds. If it's your first time here, though, welcome. My name is Zach. I'm the founder and host here at the Launchpad, and here at TLP, it's our mission to inform and inspire the explorers of tomorrow because we believe that space is better together. You're looking at our own live view from Starbase, Texas. Of course, SpaceX's feed, we're going to listen in. They're the ones with the updates, not me, but we are now coming down to that 2 minute and counting mark, hoping that they will be able to clear the range in time. They've got 5 minutes left in today's window. As always, let's see that go, no go in the chat, and let's listen in to SpaceX Mission Control for the final minutes of the count. Go Starship and go Super Heavy.
The thrust vector control that we're going to use to steer it, as well as the guidance system doing its final alignment, just a lot of our final checkouts. But we are starting to hear that it looks like the range is going to be clear at our liftoff time of 7:25 a.m. Central, 12:25 UTC. So that puts us 1 minute, 20 seconds away from launch. Still not tracking any technical issues. That range clear is the only thing that's been potentially poking at our launch. So I'm going to start to quiet down. We'll hear our flight director for today, Tristan Pierce, give some of the final call-outs. As of right now, we are 1 minute away from liftoff.
Flight directors go for launch.
Best words you could possibly hear, 20 seconds away from liftoff.
T-minus 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have liftoff.
Vehicles pitching downrange. Booster after chamber pressure nominal.
"30 seconds into the flight, the rumble's just starting to reach us here at launch control.
Booster and ship,
That
avionics
is the
power,
sound
telemetry nominal.
of 33 Raptor engines.
Max Q.
Now pass through the maximum aerodynamic pressure, the most stress the vehicle's going to see on the way uphill. All right, our next major milestone coming up, it's going to be hot staging. We're going to see the engines ignite on ship to push it away from the booster.
We still got 33 good engines on Super Heavy. We've got our camera zoomed out, ready for the return if they do it.
All right, so hot staging is going to be the next thing coming up. First, we're going to see the booster's engines start to shut down.
Look at that
All
view.
three. We're going to do what's called most engines cut off instead of main engine cut off, because 3 are going to keep going, and then we're going to see the engines on ship ignite. Right now, the tower team is doing their go, no go. And we might hear some really good words soon, too. All right. Can still see it up behind me. That is one of the most gorgeous things I've ever seen in my entire life. Coming up on hot staging next.
Ship engine
There's
startup.
most engines cut off.
Stage separation. Booster
Stage
separate.
separation,
Startup.
hot stage separation confirmed. Ship under its own power. I'm seeing 6 out of 6 Raptors lit. Hopefully I got a booster on the way back to me. I'm going to send it to you guys in Hawthorne.
Oh man, that was absolutely incredible. I loved how the crowd
Chamber pressure is nominal.
here in Hawthorne all went ooh at that first view of the blue flames from the booster. As you can see there, first stage currently is now making its way back to the launch site. Again, we are
Ship avionics power and telemetry nominal.
the booster and the tower are both performing automated checks to make sure we are go for the booster to return to the launch pad for that catch. And once those are complete, the flight director...
Booster, boost back burn, shutdown.
Flight director go for booster return.
We're going! Go!
And we did hear that the tower is go for catch. So that was one of the big criteria we were looking for.
This view
We'll
here,
wait to hear that the go for catch has been sent.
beautiful view here from the ship.
And so exciting to hear that we got a go for booster catch. That means it's going to be a really exciting morning. Again,
They are
the
returning
booster,
the largest ever rocket to its launch site. This thing is 22 stories tall.
in order to make
Here we
that
go.
catch attempt in the tower.
We're
So
keeping our
incredible
live
to see
view
these
up.
views. You can see the ship on the right-hand side of your screen. All 6 Raptor engines are under full power. Once again, the booster is making its way back to the launch site. We are going to try and catch it using the chopsticks on the launch tower, the exact same tower that it just launched from just, 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, and the booster.
Starship on nominal
And guys,
trajectory.
I can confirm the command was sent for the booster to come back.
That is
So I'm
incredible
looking
news.
up right now. It's pretty much right overhead of us, and we can see it starting to come down.
I can't wait for us to hear the sonic boom through Dan's mic.
Right.
That is going to be incredible. It was so cool to hear the liftoff. And so once again, a successful on-time liftoff of Starship Flight 5. The ship has separated from the booster. The booster is there on your screen. It is making its way back to the launch site. We are going to attempt the catch using the chopsticks. We did hear the confirmation that the command was sent to the tower. We are go for catch.
And in order to.
And guys, we should just be about 30 seconds away from our landing burn. It's going to happen in 3 phases. We're going to land 13 engines, burn off all of that velocity. Oh, we can see it coming down through the plume.
Booster coming in hot for booster catch.
We're going to ignite 13 of those Raptor engines, and this view is incredible right now. You can see how fast this vehicle is moving on the left-hand screen.
Landing burn has
13
been
engines.
ignited. We're now down to 3 Raptor engines. We can see those chopsticks now in view.
Booster landing burn shutdown.
Megavilla has popped the booster.
This is absolutely insane. On the first ever attempt, we have successfully caught the Super Heavy booster back at the launch tower.
What an incredible view!
Dan,
Wow.
I don't know about you, but we're losing our stuff up
Starship
here.
in terminal bed.
Guys, I'm sorry. Like, even in this day and age, what we just saw, that looked like magic. Oh, wow.
Dan,
Wow.
your view must have been insane. We are still going wild over here over this.
Folks, this is a day for the engineering history books. This is a live view.
That thing is 22 stories tall. What just happened?
Tower that it just came from. Dan, I love this. You are reflecting exactly what everybody else here in Hawthorne, except maybe a little bit more because you got to see it with your own eyes.
How was that?
Ship
We
window is
got
cut
it.
off.
But I mean, like, I can't even describe that. Oh, by the way, ship, main engine cut off, ship's in orbit, but I am like shaking right now. That was.
Yeah, this is not,
Yeah,
I mean,
let's check in on ship.
it's hard to believe that.
Starship nominal orbit insertion.
All right, exciting news there. It's hard to believe that, booster isn't the only excitement that we have today. Just confirmation there. A gorgeous view of planet Earth behind the ship.
Yes, saved.
And it is now in the orbit that we expected it to. This is just an incredible day. Live views there as the booster vents some pressures there. That is a live view from the top of the tower looking at the chopsticks.
I am still in disbelief. I'm trying to catch my tears just like the chopsticks caught the booster. It has been nonstop since liftoff. And we are all so excited about everything that's been happening so far this morning. With the booster having completed its job for today, we are going to take a short break for the next 30 minutes. We'll return back at T plus 40 minutes while the ship continues to coast before re-entry.
Oh, man. And as with previous flights, Starlink may actually enable us to talk with the ship through re-entry with no communication blackout. We, of course, are still testing Starlink during this phase of flight, so nothing is certain. But if we do have views, we'll be sure to bring those to you live.
Views or no views, we'll see you back here at T plus 40 minutes for coverage of Starship's re-entry, flip maneuver, landing burn, and splashdown.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have a Starship Super Heavy booster back at the landing site. I think, like everyone, I am shocked it, one, worked, two, this thing is 22 stories tall. I don't even know how to, this is insane. I've had the privilege of being down at Starbase before. I've seen Starship Super Heavy up in person. I can't imagine this thing just did that. This is as big as Falcon 9 landing. They just caught a booster out of the air. And they only have successfully splashed it down once before this. A huge congratulations to Elon, to the entire SpaceX team, and really the entire space industry. Super Heavy working is going to be a critical part of our next phase of space exploration. This is the vehicle that will take us to the moon and Mars. This is the vehicle that will open up low Earth orbit manufacturing and commercial spaceflight to the masses. And they just had their next big test, and they absolutely aced it. And looking at the launch site, it looks pretty clean. We're not seeing any big fires around the pad. We're not seeing anything there. We have recorded the view on our side view. We tried to zoom in there super last minute to catch it, because it hovered for quite a while, actually. We didn't know what to expect, so we did our best to try to get it early and then zoom in there. So we'll be posting that, of course. We'll be posting all the clips of the flight. Wow, but we're not done. We still have a Starship in orbit. That Starship currently traveling 26,397 kilometers an hour, 175 kilometers in altitude. You can see that live view on the far right side of your screen. Wow, what a day. October 13th, 2024. Starship Super Heavy landed. Well, caught for the first time. Yeah, I think like all of us, it's going to take some time to comprehend what we just saw. That rocket is back at the pad and it launched 12 minutes ago. Falcon doesn't do this. No vehicle has ever done this in human history. No engineering has thought of doing this in human history. And here we are and it works. And keep in mind, this vehicle didn't exist 6 years ago, 5 years ago. You know, we had the first full stack flight just over 2 years ago. Or not even 2 years ago, a year and a half ago. Now, this is an incredible cadence of development, and I want to hear what you guys are thinking. Send your guys' comments in the chat. If you have questions, send them in as well. Make sure you're tagging us at the Launchpad. We want to hear from you. I've got your guys' chat pulled up over here. But yeah, what are you guys thinking? Joe Dog, did I just see that? Yeah, yes, you did. We all did, and it worked. You could also see how much our camera shook during launch versus landing. Quite a bit more dramatic during the landing there. There's a new view from the chopsticks of that massive grid fin, and this is a really great view showing how they have to catch it. They do not catch this on the grid fins. They catch this on tiny little nubs under the grid fins. And it worked. We're keeping the views up because, you know, we all know what happened with the first Starship that landed. 10 minutes later, it did a little thing. We're hoping that doesn't happen, but you never know. Yeah. Speechless. A very congratulations to Earth. Arcanos 1, oh my god, I'm still shaking. Incredible. D, yeah, just amazing. Off track, absolutely amazing. Thank you for the great coverage. I appreciate it. I don't always put my camera on for streams. I try to do it for, you know, hosting periods. I try to just focus on the launch, but this one was too historic not to. So I hope you guys don't mind. Yeah, Kelpie says good job, engineers. Brian, one word, epic. Thank you for that super chat. I appreciate it. So true. Kathy, congratulations, SpaceX. Incredible. Had me when it lit up. This is history. Go Elon. Thomas, your view was perfect. Spaceboy, this is successful. Elon is GOAT. Wild Wonderful Trail. Thank you, SpaceX engineers and Elon. Absolutely. Johnny, brilliant. Aviation guy, I can't believe this. Just catching up on your guys' thoughts. I'm gonna have to go back and look at the chat when it actually happened. Randy, your expressions were all of us. I'm kind of scared to go back and see my expressions. I was scared to do that after the last flight too. Please don't turn me into terrible memes. I won't say no memes because, you know, it's the internet, but yeah, absolutely incredible. What we can do is I will work on, I'm gonna leave that recording right now, but I will work on try to patch in a replay from at least our view of what just happened. So bear with me a moment. I'm doing this live manually. So let me get that patched in and get that on air here in just a minute. In the meantime, if you guys have questions, you can send those in the chat by tagging us at the Launchpad, and I will work on answering those while we work to get this replay patched in for you guys. But wow, what a day. But what a day. I don't even know how to think. We just saw something that is legitimately changing the concept of physics and engineering and math and science and so many things that we never really thought possible. And we're just proven possible. catching this live feed here. Here's a replay
In hot.
of it coming in. Oh my goodness, I'm gonna see my facial expression. This is concerning. You can see my view above me in the replay, and then SpaceX's view. I haven't even watched SpaceX's view. I was watching mine. Look at that thing come in. I know it got cropped out on the live stream. I do have the uncropped version saved, so we'll get that posted shortly. Look at it come in. Look at the angle. Like, that thing came in not even sideways. That was... And just totally fine. No big deal. You know, just... This is funny. A slight delayed reaction, but wow. Yeah, that was so incredible. And then here we are now to this. This is a live view from low Earth orbit via Starlink of Starship. Look at that big, beautiful planet. And that big grid, or big fin, ready for re-entry. Some incredible views coming in for it. Looking at the timeline, entry of Starship is 48 minutes, 3 seconds into flight. That is when they will begin that entry sequence, and we'll of course be staying live through all of that. Ben Dare, that was the most amazing and thrilling thing I've seen since the first space shuttle launch. But one big question: why is the launch pad so close to all the fuel? A great question. Next question. In the future, it'll be probably different. I don't know how to say your name because it's in different characters, but I'm actually speechless. I did not expect them to catch it first try. Absolutely, JP Baker, absolutely blown away. Just incredible. Your reactions are priceless. No need to be embarrassed. I appreciate it. Godana, in a couple of decades, we'll see this wonder at Mars. It's not a decade, it's years. In 2 years, they plan to send at least 5 starships to Mars on the next window. And if those land successfully, Elon says they're putting crew 2 years later. If they don't, then they do 5 more cargo, and then 2 years after that. We are either 4 or 6 years away from the first crew going to Mars. One of the questions is, who lands first? NASA's moon cruise or SpaceX's Mars cruise? We'll have to see. Oh, I really wish I went now. Any penny would have been worth going, but I'm glad that I got to be here with you guys and watching this and able to bring this to you uninterrupted. You know, strong internet and that, and there's so many other things. We got Falcon Heavy tomorrow. We're waiting on New Shepard. We got crew coming home. There's so many things in spaceflight, but it feels like it all fails to compare to this. That booster is hanging out in the chopsticks, and it just flew, and I don't even know what to think. Absolutely insane. I'm hearing from our rocket chaser Gavin, no service. Down there, everyone is on their phones. But holy, absolutely, I'm speechless. I think we all are going to be that for a while. But yeah, if you guys have questions, you can send those in the chat by tagging us at the launch pad. And we'll work on answering those over the next 20 minutes. We have a bit of a coast phase. I am going to try to work on getting some of the clips up on YouTube, so if you want to catch the replays as well, we will work on getting those as well. So you're going to have to just bear with me as I kind of multitask getting those clips up for you guys on top of answering your guys' questions. But if you send those in by tagging us at the launch pad, We'll work on answering those live. Also, it's probably a good time to mention it if you are interested in space and are passionate about informing and inspiring that next generation, and you want to be part of our team, maybe as a launch commentator for Starship or Falcon 9, or you want to be a journalist writing news articles or mission briefings about your favorite missions, or you just even want to be a moderator. Our application is in the chat there, ! Apply. We would love to have some of you join our crew as we expand and bring more coverage and expand our team. We're opening up other positions for volunteer positions as well as producers and different things. So take a moment, consider applying. It's part-time volunteering is totally acceptable, and we're excited to hopefully welcome some more of you onto the crew. I know some people have already applied. With the hurricane, we're playing catch up, but we'd love to invite some more of you on the team. Charlie, $10 super chat. What do you think the chances are that 40-year-old will get to retire on the moon now? I don't know retire, but I made a joke a couple of years ago that, being lucky enough to be in this industry, can I make it to lower... I'm 28. I'll be 29 in December. Can I make it to low Earth orbit by 30? Or, sorry, by 40? Moon by 50, Mars by 60. Is that my life timeline of the ability to go? And I think with Starship, yes. I think Mars could actually happen sooner than the 50, 60. But yeah, I definitely think we will see opportunities to go. Obviously, to start, it's going to have to be the first people to make it possible. Then we'll see expensive tourism open up, and then we'll see other tourism open up. I still can't comprehend flying on a Starship. Like, I'm pretty sound on flying on a Dragon right now. Like, sign me up, let's go. I can't imagine boarding a Starship, and we'll have to see how re-entry goes. Maybe that'll change my mind. Wow, just wow. Continued speechless. We're getting those clips up on YouTube right now, so if you want to catch those replays, you can, and then we'll work on getting our other videos up as well. We'll have to see how our remote cameras did as well. So the moment we get access to those, hopefully today, we'll get those photos out on social media and on our shop as we continue to tell this story. Joe Dog, well, we can say SpaceX has a 100% success rate at catching boosters midair. That is definitely true. Brian, the Primate Astro, can you elaborate on the flames after the booster was caught? Was that just some burning off excess fuel as something normal, or was that something else? That is a really great question. I saw that myself, Brian. I have a feeling that was just excess fuel that, like, when it landed, there was like an oomph, and maybe some more fuel came out. But we'll have to wait. I don't want to speculate on what that was. I want to wait for SpaceX to do their proper not investigation, but review, and figure out what that was. But I mean, the fact that there was no explosion, and it wasn't sustained, which means they were in control of it, I think was a really, really good sign. Linux user 1234, will Starship splash down or land on land? So Starship will splash down today. But the big question is, if it splashes down well today, when does Starship start doing landing attempts, and where? So there's a lot of questions left open on that. There's no landing site at Starbase anymore. So we'll have to wait and see, and I don't think we're going to see a Starship catch for a while, because eventually they want to catch the Starships too. So we'll have to wait and kind of see what happens, but wow. I think I keep saying that, but wow, we just saw that. Gonna save that recording before we lose it on our raw feed. A huge thanks to John, again, helping us get this camera set up and maintaining it. Shout out to Gavin and his dad being down there for capturing it. Wow, what a day. A huge thank you to our entire TLP crew. It would not be possible without so many of you. The mods, our advisors, Lewis, so many people. Incredible. And I'm so lucky to get to do this with our team. And I'm excited to hopefully welcome some more of you onto our team here in the near future. But again, wow. I don't really know what to say of what we just witnessed. I think that's probably going to be what we hear from a lot of people. Is wow. But yeah, keep sending in your guys' comments and questions in the chat, tagging us at the launch pad. Apollo, what happened to the other coverage? NS27. We are live on it. They've never gone live. They're now targeting 927. I need to update the timeline on that. Bear with me as I update that. We'll stay live, but we'll patch in their feed as soon as they go live. They keep delaying it. I have a feeling there are people who are watching Starship who are like, we can't launch right now. No one's watching. So we'll have to wait and see how that goes. But bear with me as I try to get these clips up for you guys as quickly as we can. Replays. Perfect weather, absolutely. What was the debris from Starship? That was ice. So there's ice that's breaking off of Starship. And that is totally normal to see. So we're not too concerned about seeing ice flaking off. That's something that we've seen before. So it's okay to see that. It looks weird to see because you normally don't want to see stuff coming off of your rocket. But it is okay. Excited to see Elon take to social media, I'm sure, the next few minutes if he hasn't already, to reflect on what just happened. Truly a historic day, and really came from not a joke, but a joke. It really, yeah. It's, wow. I feel like we're gonna be saying wow a lot for the next couple of days. Again, if you guys have questions, you can keep sending those in the chat, and I'll work on answering those live while we can continue to await the Starship entry. That's set to begin here not too long. I'm going to take a very quick 5-minute commentary break, and then I will be back for re-entry. I'm getting these clips up for you. Stay with us right here on the launch pad as we continue to watch history in the making. Stay with us. And if you're just...
Completed the landing burn with 13 Raptor engines igniting and slowing down the vehicle perfectly from Mechazilla to catch the super heavy booster for the first ever land recovery of the vehicle.
Now, it is insane to think that we're not done yet. We still have, in about 48 minutes, the ship will re-enter. All the flaps that will today, not that could. The ship will re-enter the Earth's atmosphere. Now, as a reminder, one of the main goals of today's test flight is for the ship to make it through the extreme heat of re-entry and to do so in a controlled manner. We learned a lot about this phase during Flight 4 and, as a result, completely reworked the heat shield, but more on all that in just a minute. Now, re-entry is typically a portion of flight where we don't have communications with the spacecraft because re-entering, it'll be re-entering at about 8 kilometers per second, or about 5 miles per second of roughly orbital velocity. Now, those speeds, the spacecraft moving through the atmosphere results in friction and creates a plasma field around the vehicle. We saw this in action on Flight 4 thanks to Starlink, and wow, it was breathtaking. The blanket of plasma ends up distorting communication frequencies, so it's not uncommon to experience brief blackouts in communication, but hopefully that's not the case today.
And Kate, that's where Starlink has just kind of been just the unsung hero and the MVP of this test campaign. I mean, it's able to give us data, not just awesome video, but also data in real time as we're going through reentry. I mean, this is something that throughout the history of spaceflight just hasn't been possible. And this is an environment that is so unforgiving, so hard to model, so hard to understand. And for the first time ever, we're able to literally watch as it unfolds in real time, get that in real time.
And if you're just joining us, though, welcome here to the launch pad. You are looking at live views from onboard Starship Ship 30, powered by Starlink, these views, as well as this incredible photo above us. This is just the first photo coming in from Gavin, and it is already available over on the TLP shop. The link is in the chat there if you want to pick that up as a poster for it. We try to keep our posters as affordable as we can, under $25 for you to be able to take one of those home, depending. They also available in metal prints and canvas to commemorate today's mission. Definitely check out the other posters we have from Gavin and our other rocket chasers of Starship and some of your other favorite rockets, but wanted to get that up there right away. And huge shout out to Gavin capturing this. What an incredible view. Look at the angle that thing came in at. We knew it was an angle when we watched it, but just a few degrees to the left from where our camera is, and you could just see that really coming in kind of sideways there. And will be interesting to see what the pad looks like over the next day or so. But all eyes now on the ship, as ship is beginning its entry in about 4 minutes. It's expected to have an exciting landing if it gets all the way down 1 hour, 5 minutes into flight. So the next 20 minutes are going to be some pure excitement to see how Starship performs in its re-entry. Now we're going to, though Gavin's picture is truly incredible, we're going to pop that down as we watch Starship. We're going to continue to maintain our live view at Starbase, keeping an eye on what that booster is doing, but also what SpaceX is doing, as this is the first time we've ever had to see them do recovery operations like this. We're going to see how soon they lower it and what they do ultimately with that booster. We do have this as a 24/7 camera, so following today's launch, we will transition to our 24/7 camera where you can follow along with what they're doing, and so make sure you stay tuned for that. But the next 20 minutes are going to be pure excitement as we watch Starship S30 come home. We're going to continue answering your guys' comments and questions. The launch and landing clips are now up over on the shop, and you can see them talking a little bit about the heat shield, so we're going to listen in as they talk about these incredible heat shields and how they bring Starship home. Let's listen in to SpaceX Mission Control.
There on the side.
Yeah, exactly. And having these different shapes, the flat version and the curved version, allow us to cover a lot more of the surface area of the vehicle. Again, we need to protect every portion of it, so even those curved surfaces, and especially the hinge area, if you watched Flight 4, is really what we want to make sure that we protect. And yeah, Kate, these are very,
Super
very lightweight.
But when you put 18,000 of them together, they add up to 10.5 tons, which is incredible. Now, we did mention earlier that the heat shield has been completely reworked.
Starship has entered the atmosphere, remains on a nominal entry trajectory.
We can start to see that plasma now starting to build up on the side. It's not quite full plasma yet, but we are starting to see that color indicate that the heat is building up on the heat shield.
Yeah, this is such a cool sight to see because you really never really have gotten to see this live before Flight
4.
Yeah, and as Kate mentioned, it's getting a little more red, as you can see there on your screen. That means that heat is building up, but that's exactly what these heat shield tiles are there for, is to protect against this plasma and this really, really extreme heat that the vehicle is going to see for about the next 10 more minutes or so.
Yeah, so the ship will attempt to light the 3 center Raptor engines, and those are the engines that can gimbal or maneuver or point, and they do that to help flip the ship until the engines point down so that it can land using the Raptor's thrust in the ocean. So that will happen after we get through this re-entry period. Again, now starting to see, and we also might start to see the flaps actuate a little bit here as the vehicle controls its roll during re-entry. That was one of the main learning points from Flight 3, was the roll control didn't work quite as well as we wanted it to. We learned that we needed some redundancies, so we added more roll control thrusters, and we'll see those in action as well today, as that was a Flight 3 learning that worked better on Flight 4 and still enabling that same design today.
Yeah.
Starship has passed through 85 kilometers altitude. Flaps now have control of the vehicle.
Great call out. As Kate mentioned, the flaps are controlling the attitude of the vehicle. And I love these views because it looks so calm. Everything is relative, right? So relative to this camera on the ship, it looks so calm and smooth, but the vehicle is traveling extremely fast. You can see the speed on the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. Starship is designed to land on Mars where there are no runways or other humans to help out. So we also want rapid reusability. So we're doing propulsive landing instead of a more traditional means like parachutes. And so we will use the engines on this vehicle to help slow the vehicle down for a vertical landing.
Yeah. Now, entry is going to basically happen in 5 phases. The first is low drag. That lasts for about 3 minutes. Next is high heating, and beginning when heating increases above the heat rate breakup limit. That lasts for about 10 minutes. We then have high dynamic pressure. Starship will continue to slow down and experience increased aerodynamic loads during that phase, and that will happen before reaching Mach 1, about a minute after.
Starship is approaching the peak heating phase of entry, remains on a nominal trajectory.
Okay, so that was phase 2 that he just called out, that I was mentioning. After peak heating is that dynamic pressure around Mach 1, and that will last about a minute after leaving the hypersonic area, and then we go into subsonic, and then, of course, landing burn. Wow, what an incredible view.
The colors are so amazing, and the colors actually also tell you a little bit about the temperature that the vehicle is seeing as well. So I think that's pretty cool that we get this amazing live visual.
Speaking of live visual, the flap, we have more views, more cameras on board Starship, as Dan mentioned a few minutes ago. We are hoping that all 4 flaps will stay more intact than they did last time. We did make some changes to the design in order to help enable
Starship
this.
is now experiencing peak heating, remains on a nominal entry trajectory.
Great news there that Starship is continuing along the path that we intended it to fly. You can keep track with how fast it's going and how high it is above Earth using the display that is there on the bottom right-hand side of your screen.
And guys, This is where we're really going to see a lot of those improvements from Flight 4 really come into action. Is you guys kind of talked about, so what's called the static arrow. Those are kind of the poke out points on the flaps. Those get exposed to some pretty extreme heat environments, and so we added some additional, basically made it a lot more robust for the thermal protection there. And we learned not just from visuals and stuff like that. We had those missing tile tests on Flight 4 where we intentionally left some out, kept in some backup layers. They're called ablatives, which means they just gradually melt away to help dissipate the heat. And we've got an entire layer of ablative underneath the tiles on this Starship today. So even if you get a gap in a tile or a tile is broken, anything like that, we've got essentially backup options. And what we're really trying to do today is do an on-target landing. As we lost the flaps, you lose a lot of your control, and so we didn't land right on target last flight. This time we're trying to really nail the target within just tens of meters. And that'll just be a really huge step on feeling like we're closer to bringing a ship back. Obviously, there's a lot of work before we get there, but we just caught a booster. We're going to start looking real soon at when we can catch a ship.
So the view on your left is as a helicopter passes by Dan, bound at Starbase. The view on your left is a camera that's positioned near the nose of the ship, looking basically down toward the flap. The view on the right is looking perpendicular to the flap. So we're looking basically bird's eye view onto the flap on the left-hand side, and then a worm's eye view from the side with that view on the right.
Yeah, sorry about that, guys. Maverick just buzzed the tower. He might be coming back, so.
Now, these views brought to us by Starlink. It's incredible that we have this high-definition capability. In fact, that view on the left...
Starship is now halfway through the peak heating phase of entry, remains on a good trajectory.
So great news there, hearing that we're about halfway through the peak heating phase. Like I said earlier, this lasts roughly 10-ish minutes. And we did hear earlier that the flaps have control of the vehicle, so also good news there. You know, it is incredible that we've basically had views the entire time.
Right, yeah.
Although
Thanks to Starlink.
My memory did black out a little bit after booster catch, so I think we had views. But, you know, all through the coast phase, we had some beautiful views of planet Earth behind the ship as it was in its orbit.
Yeah, and I also do want to point out on your right-hand screen, we've got a more encompassed view of the flap. As we watched in Flight 4, the hinge area was the area where we got a little bit of that burn through. This view, this new camera view on the ship will help us be able to visually see more of what's happening in that area. And again, we have improved our heating tiles, and so hopefully we've protected the hinge a lot better this time.
Landing chill has started.
But again, these views are additional to the data that we get on these flight tests that help enable us kind of put the data that we get in the computer to the visuals that we see and try and align those and use that for improvements in the future.
Now, we heard a call out there saying that engine chill has begun. This is an indication that we are starting to flow a little bit of the super cold liquid oxygen through the hardware, through the Raptor engine, specifically the turbo pumps, to help ensure that the hardware is at the right temperature before we give a full push, a full flow of propellant at engine startup. So all of that to say, we are getting closer to the landing burn.
We definitely are. And again, if you look at the bottom right hand of your screen, you can see the altitude that the ship is, and it has been slowly making its way closer and closer to Earth. We're currently at about 63 kilometers from planet Earth, and you'll see that number trend lower and lower as we get closer and continue through this reentry.
Yeah, this is going to go on for a little, actually, a while longer. We have about 10 minutes or so, roughly, before we execute the landing, the ignition for the landing burn, starting with the landing flip. So we're making a controlled reentry. This is one of the primary objectives for Starship today, is to demonstrate another controlled reentry, even more controlled than what we saw on Flight 4. And so far, that is looking good.
And then as we start to really get lower, we're going to start seeing the atmosphere's effects start to take place, and that's when we'll be dropping our speed down closer to the speed of sound. You'll see the flaps start to maneuver. We were able to do a landing burn on Flight 4, which kind of caught all of us off guard. It was pretty incredible after seeing the flaps survive through. And we're going to try and do another one on this flight today. We tweaked it a little bit, so we're going to try and splash down at a little bit of a gentler angle this time, instead of just kind of hit the water and fall over. And the goal with that is try and keep the ship intact, and then if we're able to then get some additional video of it, again, that's just more data. And everything we can see, everything we can get extra, like a couple extra seconds or minutes of data coming from the ship after
Starship has
splashdown.
passed through the peak heating phase of flight, approaching maximum entry dynamic pressure.
All right, we're through peak heating. Coming up is basically max Q part 2, where we're going to hit kind of that part of the curve where we're still moving really fast and the atmosphere is just dense enough that we're feeling the most pressure, but hopefully we're going to start feeling a little bit less heat now.
Looks like we got more views of each of the flaps on the ship as it's making its way back down to Earth. And we did pass through peak heating and still got really good views throughout that whole period. Typically, during the highest heat on the vehicle, we tend to build up a lot of plasma, and that's typically when we would lose, connection or views of the vehicle. But again, with Starlink, we were able to get some live views throughout that entire process there.
And we're coming up, we'll start hearing a couple more milestones in about 4 minutes or so, when we start getting down to like the transonic, the subsonic, when we're starting to move closer to and beneath the speed of sound. And I mean, we're getting live views, we're getting live data. We've got a couple additional tests on this one today where we left off some missing tiles again to test some additional backup layers. We also have, I don't know if we can still quite see them in this view, but you may have noticed we had some kind of silvery looking tiles on Starship as well. And those were pretty much standard tiles, but they were wrapped in aluminum. And it was a pretty simplistic, straightforward one where aluminum starts to melt at roughly the same temperature where steel starts to lose its strength, not necessarily melt. And so if we see stuff melting, we know what our steel is going to be exposed to. But yeah, 59 minutes since launch, should be coming up on transonic and everything just about 3 minutes.
Now the views here, we have coverage of all 4 flaps. We can see, so for those that perhaps didn't catch a glimpse of the vehicle before liftoff, there are 2 flaps at the forward end and 2 flaps at the aft end. The larger camera view that is there on the right-hand side of your screen, that is a view of one of the aft end or the bottom end flaps. We can start to see some heat buildup and peeking through on one of the flaps there in the top left-hand corner of your screen. Once again, Starship now at T+1 hour and 9 seconds into its flight today, re-entering the Earth's atmosphere. currently about 45 kilometers above the surface of the Earth, now 44. We are targeting a soft splashdown in the Indian Ocean, about, northwest-ish of Australia. And we are attempting to, as we did on Flight 4, perform a flip maneuver as well as
Starship is at maximum entry dynamic pressure, remains on a good trajectory.
All right, so that is great news there. Like Dan said earlier, this is basically max Q part 2. So this is the greatest amount of aerodynamic loads that the vehicle will experience during its flight. It's coming back through the Earth's atmosphere. It was above the Earth's atmosphere in space where there was no friction. We can obviously see heat as evidence of that friction buildup. The atmosphere is actually helping to slow the vehicle down. If you're watching the telemetry in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, you can see that speed decelerating rapidly. Now, the 4 flaps on the ship help steer the vehicle, and one of the main objectives for the ship today is to demonstrate controlled re-entry during this phase of flight, this re-entry phase.
Yeah, and we have 6 engines on ship, but we only need 3 of them, the 3 sea-level engines. We will have that flip maneuver happen very close to touching down for splashdown. We'll do that flip maneuver, ignite those engines, slow the vehicle down immediately, and then hopefully have what we call a soft splashdown in the water. It's probably going to feel a little bit harder on the top of the surface of the water, but it'll look pretty gentle.
Yeah, and like we said earlier, we hope to have some more views, even of that phase of the flight. So fingers crossed that we can we can bring those to you. We are hoping to splash down softer than we did last time on Flight 4. Right now, Starship continuing to make its descent back to planet Earth.
Starship is at Mach 2, remains on a good trajectory.
All right, great news there. That tells us that the vehicle is traveling twice the speed of sound. So we will then, the next call out that we'll hear is that it is, traveling about the speed of sound. And then we will hear a call out that that will be the call out that it is transonic. And then we will hear another call out saying that it is subsonic, meaning going slower than the speed of sound.
Starship is transonic.
There it is. So at this point in time, we say transonic because certain parts of the vehicle, like the flap that you see on your screen, might be experiencing airflow faster than the speed of sound, while other parts of the ship may be experiencing airflow.
Starship is in the subsonic belly flop.
All right, so now the entire vehicle is traveling slower than the speed of sound, so subsonic. The crowd here at Mission Control Hawthorne also getting excited, just like us. We're awaiting a water landing. We are going to reignite the 3 engines to perform that flip maneuver, and we're basically about a minute and a half, away from the landing flip.
Yeah, the crowd's getting excited here as we get closer and closer to splashdown. Again, just about a minute away from the expected splashdown, so we should see a lot happening coming up here shortly. We're currently having a view of one of the flaps, and it is a little bit dark on your screen, but hopefully we'll get some good views of the ship as it makes that flip maneuver and touchdown for splashdown.
Yeah,
guys, we saw that speed drop like a rock. So we're doing a belly flip right now, or a belly flop right now. That's what's kind of, if you saw the high altitude campaign, that's the unique thing about how Starship comes back. So we've bled off pretty much all of the speed we're going to. We're essentially at terminal velocity.
Starship is at 5 kilometers altitude, remains on target.
5 to go, coming up soon, landing burn.
Two kilometers away.
Starship is on target, approaching landing burn startup.
So keep an eye on the bottom right-hand side of your screen as well. That will be the indicator when the Raptor engines ignite if we are unable to see that illumination ourselves.
Landing burn startup.
What a cool view of the reflection of that landing burn.
You can see the water just behind the ship.
Starship has landed.
An incredible view. I think it is safe to say we have a ship in the water.
Touchdown!
That is a live view from the ocean surface. What an incredible end to Starship's journey. A live view from a buoy that we had out at the landing zone.
An incredible view of ship landing just about on target as they were calling out.
That was amazing. And we were not intending to recover any of the ship's hardware, so that was the best ending that we could have hoped for.
Man, I don't think we're going to be able to get a ton of extra video of the heat shield, but we hit the target. We hit the target. Yeah.
That is one of the biggest things right there. They had a buoy, and they are that close to the buoy. That there is a precise landing of Starship for the first ever time.
What a day. I feel like that's what I get to say. What a day. I mean, everything started off today with that launch. We were able to lift off towards the end of our window, 7:25 a.m. Central Time. 33 out of 33 Raptors in the way uphill. Successful hot stage. Booster came back. We watched it come down right behind us. Watched it get caught. And that broke my brain for a while. I'm really happy we had coast for a bit, but that's first ever booster catch, major step on the way to rapid reusability. And ship just gave us one heck of a show, making it through a controlled re-entry this time, flaps intact, made it down to the water. Hey, starships were meant to fly, and it sure as hell flew today. So let's get ready for the next one. Over to you guys.
They were meant to fly, and they were also meant to be caught by Mechazilla.
Yeah.
It's been such an incredible day today. Congratulations to our teammates and to everyone who supported the Starship program. And thank you to all of our future customers for your support. And we'll also like to thank the people of Cameron County, Texas, as well as the Coast Guard, the Federal Aviation Administration, the Government of Mexico, and the Australian Space Agency.
Now be sure to follow SpaceX on X for more updates on today's test flight and, of course, for future Starship news. Today was amazing, but the SpaceX action isn't over yet. Soon Falcon Heavy will launch NASA's Europa Clipper, and we're also going to be returning Dragon back to Earth with NASA's Crew 8 astronauts. So congratulations again to the SpaceX team. What an amazing launch and an even cooler catch. Thank you for watching, but we're going to leave you with an awesome recap of what has been the most epic day.
And more footage that we're hopefully going to get released here. Wow, look at that. Look how perfect. And just a light set down. Wow, what an incredible day. I'm so excited they're releasing this footage already. This is awesome. We'll get all of these up on the channel here in a little bit. But first of all, if it's your first time here, welcome. My name's Zach. If you're wondering who I am, I'm the founder and host here at the Launchpad here at TLP Network. It's our mission to inform and inspire the explorers of tomorrow because we believe that space is better together. You're looking at a live view from our first Starbase camera. We're working on getting more down there. If you're a member, sometimes you do get to even control the camera. And it was a historic day, October 13th. 2024, the first ever time Mechazilla caught a super heavy booster and Mechazilla is partying. What an incredible, incredible day. Congratulations to the entire SpaceX team. They are concluding their live coverage. We're going to wrap up ours. Our 24/7 camera is live, so if you want to stay looking at this view and watch as they recover Super Heavy, and we don't know what they're going to do now. I know they're going to lower it at some point. They're going to have to swing it over. There's a lot of checkouts that have to be done, but if you're just joining us, that rocket hanging in the air launched Starship, which just splashed down near Australia, and that booster is back in the tower that it launched from, all in a matter of, an hour and a half? Not even. Truly incredible day. As I said earlier, if you haven't yet checked out the photos coming in from our incredible team down at Starbase, we do have those up on the shop. We'll get more as we get access to our remote cameras, should those have worked and survived. So make sure you stay tuned to that. A huge shout out to Gavin, his dad, for being down there on site, making the jaunt over last minute with the hurricane. Huge thank you to our entire TLP crew of mods, helping make sure the chat is staying safe and fun for everyone. If you haven't yet joined us over on the TLP Discord, we'll probably do a kind of post-show hangout at some point later tonight or tomorrow, kind of chat about everything as we get more information. But wow, what an incredible morning. And just the start of a new era of space exploration. I feel like I keep saying that, but we keep hitting these huge new milestones. The first ever Super Heavy catch. That's going to do it from our TLP Space Coast studio in Florida. We're continuing to count down to the launch of New Shepard, Falcon Heavy with Europa Clipper, the return of Crew 9, the first ever flight of New Shepard, who knows when the next flight of Vulcan will be, and so much more. You can stay up to date at tlpnetwork.com. If you're interested in joining our team, hit that exclamation point apply button in the chat. That'll get access to our application. We'd love to have some of you join our crew. But that's going to do it for us here from our TLP Space Coast studio in Florida. My name's Zach, and on behalf of the entire TLP crew, we hope to see you next time, because space is better together. And congratulations, SpaceX, and welcome home, Super Heavy.